Good news, everyone. Dark and Darker is back. But you have to download it via torrent because they're not allowed to put it on Steam because of the DMCA takedown notices. But it is back, and there's future updates planned by the devs that may or may not come to anything because they're now being sued by Nexon in America. But the game is really fun. A lot of new changes that people really didn't like. So the devs put out a patch really fast that you also had to torrent to patch your game. This is a weird story. Okay, well, my name is Tom, otherwise known as Titanium Legman, for those of you who do not know. And in my previous video about the whole situation surrounding Dark and Darker, I said I wasn't sure if I was really going to do any more videos on the topic, because covering news, drama, legal stuff between companies, not really my dig here. But I was planning, and still am planning, I think, to do a few videos and or streams covering Dark and Darker, playing Dark and Darker, while this playtest is live, especially because this might be the last playtest we get, who knows? And seeing as how I'm planning on covering the game in that capacity, it only felt right to put out a little video first, just talking about the current situation. Partially because if any of you are interested in the game, it might be a little hard to get a hold of. Like, it can be done, but it's not conventional. And it's uncertain if this is going to be a game that's going to be around for the long term or not. So it just felt like it's important that I talk about it. So yeah, long story short, Dark and Darker, a game by an indie team from Korea, Iron Mace, has been DMCA claimed on Steam, and now they are being sued in the U.S. copyright courts, and I believe already were sued, and I think that case fell through in Korea. I'm not 100% up to date on the details, so my apologies if that's not correct. But yes, they are an indie team from Korea who made this incredible dungeon crawling escape game. I believe they're called extraction games now after Escape from Tarkov kind of coined the term. Set in a very standard, generic, dark fantasy RPG setting, obviously very inspired by D&D, Dungeons and Dragons, and it's a blast. You're fighting monsters, you're fighting other players, you're trying to get loot where you can, and get out with your stuff. If you die, anything that you had looted in that run, and anything that you brought into the dungeon with you from previous runs, is gone forever. But anything you escape with, you can sell, get some gold, buy other gear, potentially go into the trade chats, sell it to other players, buy gear from them, level up your character, and keep going. There's a bunch of different standard, again, fantasy classes: cleric, fighter, rogue, wizard, ranger, barbarian. Most recently they added bard, and then warlock is slated to come out in the future, which is very exciting to me. I'm a big warlock player in D&D, so it's a blast. I love this game. Ever since I first encountered another content creator, Elias, playing it, I was fascinated by it. I had to get in on it when the next playtest came up. It did. I did. Wound up getting a couple of my friends and channel mods, Caffeine System and Canadian Animator Guy, to play. We did a 3-man team, went, raided some dungeons, messed up some fools, got messed up by a whole lot of other fools. It was a great time. But the issue is that Iron Mace is comprised largely of devs from company Nexon. Nexon being a company huge in Korea. I've seen people kind of equate them to like the Korean Blizzard. Massively popular, massively successful. Has a lot of issues with like monetization schemes and whatnot from what I've heard, but I basically just know them from MapleStory. And they allege that the Iron Mace devs worked for them originally, which as far as we know is 100% true, and were working on a game that essentially was Dark and Darker before they left. Now, stories differ. There's stories being thrown around that one of the lead devs was fired for stealing files, which then the Iron Mace team seemingly disproved. Then they were saying that the head devs of the P3 project at Nexon left, which caused the project to get shut down. only for them to turn around and found Iron Mace and start making Dark and Darker, which is basically apparently the game they were making at Nexon. Again, I'm not a lawyer. I don't have any more info than anyone else, so I don't know how verifiable any of this stuff is. It's just what I've seen being talked about. But because Dark and Darker has gotten so popular so fast, it's being so well received, and presumably because Nexon either wants their piece of the pie or at the very least doesn't want competition out there, they're now going after Iron Mace, filed a DMCA takedown of the game on Steam, which means that it was taken off of Steam. Its early access playtest capabilities were removed there, at least temporarily. Now, most recently, they've been sued in the copyright courts in the United States, presumably because the game was put on Steam. Steam is an American company. I'm assuming that's why they did that. Over copyright issues saying, you know, that the game is stolen assets, stolen code, stolen IP, stolen, you know, secrets, trade secrets, all that type of stuff. And we have no idea where it's going to go. Not a clue. Again, I'm not a lawyer. I don't have any inside information. I just play games and talk about them. But so that's led to a very interesting series of events where the devs, who seem very staunch in the face of all this adversity, basically said, no, we're going to continue our playtests. If we can't put it on Steam, that's fine. Hey, check out our Discord and our Twitter, where we provided a link to a torrent. We are torrenting our own game to you, our community, so you can play the playtest that we had scheduled originally. Like, damn. I don't think I've heard of anything that ballsy since the Darkwood devs. Their first release of the game, I believe, was on the Pirate Bay because they just wanted people to play it. And they only got around to selling it on things like Steam later after it got popular. Like, that's, I don't know, to me that shows guts and passion right there. That's just a judgment call from me. But so the game is out currently in its 5th early access playtest, I believe it is. A lot of new updates, new map, the new Bard class, new skills and weapons for all the classes, a bunch of changes to UI elements and art and things that haven't been super well received, but people have been realizing probably were changed to further differentiate Dark and Darker from whatever project the team may have been working on at Nexon. Because their logic is kind of, you can't copyright a genre, and you can't copyright like an aesthetic and a setting, so we have every right to make this game, which, again, I'm not a lawyer, but so long as all of the assets and code and all that type of stuff are unique or were like publicly provided or even originally, then that sounds like a statement that makes sense to me. Like, if you could copyright a genre, no high fantasy, dark fantasy, anything would exist because it would all be owned by Tolkien, you know? So who knows? Maybe I'm talking out my butt with that, but it seems like it's at least on its surface a pretty staunch case. So, but the game has been great. It's been a blast to be able to play it again. I've been doing a bunch of solo runs when I can. The servers have been swamped. Again, you know, Iron Mace probably cobbling together some servers around the world since they can't use Steam. Has been struggling to keep them online, but that makes sense. The game is very popular. There's a lot of people trying to get on it right now, so it stands to reason. But when I've been able to play, it has been a blast. I largely have been playing my Cleric once again, although I have tested Rogue and Ranger a little bit, which I didn't really use in the last playtest. They've been fun. A lot of balance changes and things like that, things that are getting changed around even now as they've been patching the game and torrenting those patches to people, which is just so funny. But I'm definitely planning on playing more of it. And I can't explain why. It's just such a unique game with such passion behind it. I have not played anything else that feels like it. It's the best feeling dungeon crawler I've played in a long time. And then you add in the fact that you have this PvPvE, this player versus environment style. Makes things so interesting. Because, like, if anyone's familiar with Destiny, which is one of my other favorite games, my actual favorite mode in Destiny is Gambit. Much beleaguered as it is and lacking of support as it is. Gambit is a game mode where, again, you are two teams of four, battling the environment, battling PvE enemies, to try and spawn enemies on the opponent's map to slow them down, because each team is collecting motes to eventually spawn a boss. Whoever kills the boss wins. At different thresholds, an invasion portal will open, so a member of your team can go and invade the enemy team and try and kill them, make them drop their motes, slow them down, keep them from killing the boss, whatever. And this has a similar feel to that. Because one moment you're fighting a bunch of skeletons and zombies and wisps and mimics and all that type of stuff, and suddenly you hear a shout from around the corner, and here comes a fully roided out barbarian and her two buddies behind her, bearing down on you with malicious intent, and it's like everything changes. The whole combat environment changes. Do you run? Do you try to fight? Can you kite them into enemies? Were you fighting enemies already that you can try and maneuver to be in between you and them? Is there a quick escape that you can make through a door or something else like that? Will you be able to close it behind you? Can you hide in the darkness? There's so many different questions. And it's an incredibly fresh experience. And I love it. So I'm hoping that despite all of this litigation and all of these legal troubles and accusations and everything, that Iron Mace is in the right, that they haven't stolen anything, that it's judged that they are allowed to continue to develop Dark and Darker, that they can get the DMCA takedown removed so that they can put the game back on Steam for future updates and playtests and all that type of stuff, and that it eventually comes out in early access, because it's supposed to be out fully in early access sometime, I think in what is it, third quarter, I believe, of this year it's supposed to be out. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. But at the very least, if this is the last time we ever get to play it, I'm going to be playing it here and try and immortalize at least a little piece of it on the channel. So you can look forward to that. I'm planning on doing some runs with different characters, testing some stuff out, explaining game things, and seeing if some interesting, fun combat encounters happen. And if I'm lucky, I'll have the time to potentially stream it, maybe rope some channel mods or friends or something into some runs as well, and we'll see what happens. But yeah, that is the update for now. If you're interested in playing the game for yourself, links keep getting taken down and stuff, but I'm pretty sure at this point they've got some permanent links in the Dark and Darker Discord, so I would join that and find the links in their announcements page. It wasn't hard to play. It's basically just like downloading a game through Steam. You're just using a torrent client. So yeah, check it out if you feel like it. Playtest goes on for the next week, and then usually they extend it for another week. We'll see if they're able to do that this time around. And if you don't get the chance to play it yourself, I hope you enjoy what I put up on the channel. But that said, I'm going to call this one here. Thank you all so much for watching. I do very much appreciate it. If you haven't subscribed and you want to see more Dark and Darker content, please do subscribe and leave a like on the video if this is a topic you're interested in or you just want to support. That'd be great. My name has been Tom, otherwise known as Titanium Legman. Have a good night. Stay safe and healthy out there. And remember, be good to each other. Bye now.